Legendary tough man, one of the toughest men to ever be in a wrestling ring, and former 8-time NWA World Champion Harley Race has tragically passed away at the age of 76. Encapsulating his career in a single video is impossible for anybody from a wrestling fan to even his fellow colleagues, people that worked with him. Obviously, there are fans that are older that may remember seeing him live. I unfortunately never got to see Harley Race live because by the time I got into wrestling, he was kind of fading out. I got to see him as a kid at the end of his career, but I still respected what he did because you could tell he was certainly so goddamn tough, and the bumps that he still took were goddamn impressive. And even after his career ended, his in-ring career ended in 1991, he would still make appearances, and he would still, he was a manager for Vader for a while. He would still make sporadic appearances. He would make appearances on WWE TV. He even appeared at Wrestle Kingdom 8. That's the kind of legacy that Harley Race left, and it is so sad that he has passed away. Now, he did have a lot of health issues, in recent months and years, but you just know how tough the man was. I mean, how in the world would death even be able to take him? So Harley Race must have just said, you know what, I want to go see my friends, and that must have been what he said. It is just really, really sad. Boy, that's gonna be a hell of a show. I'm not a religious person, but can you imagine just how big that show up in the sky must be with so many wrestlers and everything. Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes having so many goddamn classic matches and everything, and so many others. It is just a who's who up there. It is just amazing. Going over every single factoid of his career would be goddamn impossible. It really, really would be. He started in 1960 at the age of 16 or 17. He was born in April of 1943. I'm not exactly sure on the exact date of when he started, but he was wrestling from that point, and really built up a hell of a legacy. I mean, he went from so many big companies, AWA, the NWA. He would work the world over and everything. He even worked a few shows in the WWF against champions Bob Backlund and superstar Billy Graham. And even working as AWA champion Nick Bockwinkel. I mean, you think right there alone, okay, Bob Backlund and Nick Bockwinkel, those kind of matches would be absolutely great, and Harley at his peak, and even later in his career, could still pull out a great match and still put somebody over proper. Just looking at what he could do, the diving headbutt and stuff like that he did. He was the one to popularize that, and did end up regretting that because so many people were doing it, and it damaged his own body that he did end up regretting it. But originally, one of his finishing moves used to be a suplex. I don't want to say a simple suplex, because with Harley, even though he was legit tough and could hurt you, he was safe enough and wouldn't actually hurt anybody, even if he wanted to. But just you think about all these finishing moves and everything now, and you think about a suplex finishing somebody, but Harley can make it believable. And also, it was a different time back then. Yes, he was a unrecognized 8-time NWA champion. And you just think about, even if he was just 7 times, still, you look at all the people that he beat, the classic feuds he had with Dory Funk Jr., Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, and everything that he was able to do in his career. Earlier, when he was in the AWA, teamed up with Larry Hennig before he became Larry the Axe Hennig. That was in 1965. And, they were 3-time, Harley Race was a 3-time AWA Tag Team Champion. That's back when the AWA was really, rising up and everything. And Harley fit perfectly into the AWA because, he was legit tough, a great athlete, and could have tough man, he could have tough man competitions with people, like brawls and everything, or he could have technical classics. It was really hard to find flaws in Harley Race's work. Again, if you see him later in his career, sure. Anybody that's into their 40s that's had as many injuries and everything that he had, and that anybody had at that age, sure, you might kind of wonder, well, what's the big deal with this guy? Watch a lot of his stuff from any NWA footage, even from the 70s. I don't know if any AWA footage exists from the 60s. I'm not so sure about that. I would love to see it, though, if that is possible. But just Harley could always get a classic match out of anybody. I mean, when he beat Dory Funk Jr. for the NWA title. And even during that time when he had already accumulated a few NWA world title runs, you want to establish a new championship, you put it on Harley Race, and that was the NWA US champion. US championship. He was the first ever NWA US champion. And, I believe he won it January 1st, 1975. And he only held it for 6 months. So he wasn't even close to the longest reigning champion ever. But that's how you establish a championship. It's like, that's where you knew. It's like, hey, Mid-Atlantic area, all that. If you want to establish a championship, you put it on Harley Race, especially at that time. Harley could really do no wrong. Even as his career went on, even, world traveled, he was a true world champion where he defended that, going all over the world. And working with people and, even working with Tony Atlas and wanting the promoter to put the title on Tony Atlas for even a couple weeks while Harley, I believe, went to Japan or something like that. And then that didn't end up happening, even though it would have been a hell of a moment. I mean, because Harley recognized how to go with the hot hand. And yes, it would have ended up, being a short reign. But Harley understood how to put people over while still keeping himself over. He worked with Tommy Rich. That was back when Tommy Rich, was pretty hot and everything. I mean, his star fell pretty quickly, but still, Harley Race could, work with some people that you wouldn't think were all that good, and my God, could just, do incredible things and pull so much out of them, because that's a sign of a true professional. That's exactly the kind of person that Harley Race was. And that's what's really sad about this is, I mean, obviously he wasn't going to wrestle anymore, not at the age of 76. I mean, not with his health issues and everything, but it's an era that we can't go back to as fans. And again, I just was at the when I started watching wrestling, I just saw a tail end of his career. I hated him as a manager of Vader, but that was the point, because he was supposed to be that. Now, after, the whole feud with Flair and Harley capturing the title again in 83, and the whole Flair for the gold, Harley Race put over Ric Flair strong, Gene Knitsky in the steel cage, as referee, and that happened, and the whole Flair for the gold thing happened, and yes, Harley did actually win the title back, and for a 2-day stint, and sometime in 84, it was either March or April of 84, but it was unrecognized by the NWA. Even though by that point, the NWA was starting to have issues, because some of the territories were starting to, falter and dry up and everything, but Harley doing that, 8-time NWA champion. There were some that never got more than one reign. And Harley, that spoke volumes as to how good Harley was. And Flair, put over Harley strong. Harley Race, being in the WWE Hall of Fame in 2004, I believe. He's also in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's in the St. Louis Hall of Fame. He's in a lot of Hall of Fames. And why wouldn't he be? I mean, come on. It's Harley Race. Again, one of the toughest guys ever. His legit toughness will speak volumes for decades. If you watch any of his stuff, you can see the amount of shit that he did. Even when he got into promoting and was promoting Kansas City, he would end up losing money, like by the mid-'80s. That would have to be closed down, and unfortunately he had some debts, and that's why even at the stage of his career that he was in his mid-40s, he had to go to WWF from 86, I believe, to 89. Now, he had some good moments. He was the king, Harley Race, and it fit because he was still the king of wrestling, as opposed to Lawler. Harley Race was the king of wrestling, my opinion. Even faced Junkyard Dog at Mania 3. And still had some good matches. I mean, by 89, it was obvious that that things were slowing down. He would still wrestle a bit here and there. I believe he faced Tommy Rich, I want to say, Great American Bash 1990. I want to say that's when it was. He did, of course, retire in 1991. He became the manager of Vader. And that's where I really want to go with how you establish a new monster heel, or you establish a new talent. Vader had been wrestling for a few years anyway. He wrestled a bit in the AWA, wrestled in Japan. He was recognized as a legit tough guy. But the way to introduce him is to an American audience, give him a manager, Harley Race, former multi-time NWA champion. And Harley was perfect for Vader. They were a great, great team. And of course, rest in peace to Vader. That's what's probably happening now is Harley's managing him in some matches, or they're working tag teams. Imagine that. That would have been really good to see. Obviously, it wouldn't happen, but that would have been kind of interesting. But anyway, he lent so much credibility to Vader and led him to a couple of WCW title runs. The amount of great stuff and positive influence that Harley Race had on so many people. He helped train people at a wrestling school for a while. I believe started in sometime in 1999, and just his influence will be felt forever. I mean, again, it is impossible to encapsulate the great career of Harley Race. His feuds in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even when he was starting to slow down in the 80s, he could still, when he was on your screen, you watched him and you enjoyed him. You may have hated him, but you respected him. I mean, you would have to respect him because he would pretty much knock you the fuck out if you didn't. I think, what was it? He said some promo, and I think if I hit him with my right hand and he doesn't go down, I will walk around to see what's holding him up. And he was even going to work with David Von Erich, before David Von Erich tragically passed away. Which would have been pretty interesting. I mean, actually Harley may have actually even worked with him anyway. But he sent out some kind words after David Von Erich tragically passed away. I haven't seen too many interviews with Harley, but what I have seen, personally, I obviously don't know the guy, but he always seemed very respectful and seemed to understand. I don't know if he totally understand exactly what his legacy and the kind of impact that he had on so many damn people. Harley Race is just a lengthy list of wrestlers that have tragically passed away. I have the Randy Savage t-shirt here. I have the Roddy Piper t-shirt back there. Dusty, so many legends, Pedro Morales, Bruno Sammartino. So many have passed away. And it is really, really sad, and just hope, thoughts obviously are with the family, the friends of Harley Race. And really, I'm just going to say in closing, guys, share your, guys and girls, share your, thoughts, your favorite moments from Harley Race in the comments below. There are very few matches in particular. I mean, obviously there's a Starrcade 83 match, and he's wrestled plenty of classics in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But just leave in the comments what you thought, because if there's somebody more tough than him, maybe besides Haku, maybe Haku would be just about as tough, maybe. But Harley Race was so respected, so revered, he will be sorely missed. And I just want, share your thoughts in the comments, and, do your own videos. If you're a content creator, send out your stuff on Twitter. Let Harley Race's family, obviously don't tag Harley Race's family in, but let's keep his legacy alive. Let's keep it going. Because for all the bumps, for all the bruises, for all the injuries, for every classic match, title reign, the world over, whatever country, he more than deserves it. His influence will be felt for, a good long time. And he will be sorely missed. So rest in peace, Harley Race. The legacy you left will not be forgotten.